With the cap space the Browns have, one of the areas they're going to look for, wide receiver. Let's take a look at some of the best available wide receivers. And again, we have seen these names. The PFF ranking is in parentheses after the team. So we did a thing last week, Tim. The highest level of wide receivers, free agent wide receivers, don't ever perform well. Nobody's gone, of the last 16, 2 of them have been over, and that's $8 million or more per season. Only 2 of them have had over 1,000 yards receiving. None of them have had 8 or more touchdowns. When you look at that group, if you're going to go second level, Kirk and Chark are the 2 that intrigue me if you can get them at a decent cost per season.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think those guys are pretty solid number 2 guys. Chark, I think he's still got some athletic potential to be a number 1 guy. We just haven't seen it in Jacksonville just because they've had quarterback problems for pretty much Chark's entire career in Jacksonville. And Christian Kirk, like I said, very reliable number 2 guy. He's not a bigger guy. He's not one of the bigger receivers, but he's productive. He can get you 700 to 900 yards a season, a handful of touchdowns. Productive in the punt return game as well. And that's something the Browns have needed for a while. They haven't had, a dynamic punt return for quite a few years. So, if you can get a guy who could pull double duty there to at least fill a spot, in your receiver depth chart while you remake it and while you look to the draft for potentially, your future number 1, or you try to restack it. With the number of options the Browns have in the draft, I guess it does make sense to kind of aim for a number 2, or at least a guy who in the interim, while whoever they draft is kind of developing, growing just a little bit more. Maybe they become the number 1 for a little bit before they kind of slide down. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. I don't know if they would go big game hunting and try to get a guy like Chris Godwin or Mike Williams, who I think would be a really good fit, because I think, a 6'4" receiver to put alongside Baker Mayfield. I don't think that's a guy Baker has had a receiver. Just put a really tall guy out there, a guy that's much easier for Mayfield to see. That would make a lot of sense. But again, it just depends on if they'd be willing to spend that money to get one of those big name receivers.
Yeah, and it did surprise me that top flight receivers in the past 6 years, the high name ones that have been signed as free agents have not produced at the level you would think. That did surprise me.